I want to quickly apologize for the sound quality of this episode. We recorded outside our usual little studio and it was impromptu. We didn't follow all our usual rules. So you'll hear some background noise. Also, the recording ran long, so we're splitting it in half with part 2 just a few days away. Anyway, hope you enjoy it just the same. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dreamer's Edge podcast. I am sitting here with a full cast this time around. Let's start to my right.
This is Chris, part-time writer, full-time editor.
This is François, librarian with delusions of grandeur.
This is Nicholas. I write video game review for the Dreamer's Edge.
This is Eric, teacher that's on vacation right now.
And I'm Dimitri, movie critic and webmaster of the DreamersEdge.com. And together we've formed a study group and have found a community. And we thought it would be a good time to kind of take a look back at the summer of 2011.
And as any good summer, we're going to start in April.
Before you go on, it's worth noting they're starting the summer earlier and earlier because the big movies keep wanting to one-up each other and sort of steal that audience before the other one.
Well, wait a second. You've got the list in front of you. I'm trying to guess what it was in April that kicked off the summer, because that would tell me if I've got the right read for what a summer movie is. So, okay. Which one was it?
I'm thinking Scream 4.
Okay. I don't know if that's really... Do you consider that the big summer kickoff?
Personally, I would have gone a bit later, but I see Nick's point because it is a movie that was advertised as a summer blockbuster. I think they misfired by doing that. Horror movies typically do not do well at all in the summer setting, but they did advertise it that way. They were banking on it that way, and Weinstein sort of made a huge mistake by doing so, I think.
But did it need a fourth installment? Like, was it fresh? Was it good?
Well, what's kind of cool is that it came out 10 years after the previous one, almost. Actually, 10 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of time has passed, so there was a genuine need to make a comment about where the horror industry is. And what's kind of cool is that they didn't just take the cliches of the new horror genre, because essentially the concept is Sydney and the survivors of the first 3 movies return to Woodsboro and sort of accidentally walk into a remake of the first movie.
But a remake with like today's rules, which is like more, it's pretty much torture porn now. So everybody dies in ridiculously gory fashions, and that's what they're doing now, and they're pretty much contrasting that with how it used to be.
And the plot gets needlessly convoluted. It's like they actually nailed down the cliches of today's horror films pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious because I haven't been a fan of horror films for, I guess, a decade is what it comes down to.
Neither has Wes Craven.
Yeah. So, I'm curious to see what he has to say.
So at the end of April, I guess, would be the first one that could really be considered like a summer blockbuster, because it's not horror. It would be Fast 5.
Yeah, see, for me, that's the one that kicked it off.
Yeah.
And it is in April.
I loved that movie. And I'm not really a fan of the franchise. I've seen them all except for Tokyo Drift, but this one was just so ridiculously fun that I couldn't help but love it. And The Rock was great.
He was.
And The Rock's always great.
Or Dwayne Johnson, sorry.
Yeah.
Copyright infringement.
Yeah. It's because he's great because he knows what kind of movie he's in. Whereas Vin Diesel is still under the impression he's in a smart movie.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson
the
knows.
speeches where it's just like it's all about family and this and that, and they have like some serious conversations with the beer, and the guys are just criminals. How many people did you just kill on that street?
According to the news report in the movie, 0.
Yeah,
Really?
Impossible that would happen, but there you go.
They're just very, very injured.
No, the final action scene in that, though, is astounding. It involves 2 sedans driving a bank vault across the streets of Rio, which are mysteriously flat all of a sudden, like the streets of Monaco, and not leaving any marks on the road either. It defies every laws of physics, but it is freaking awesome. And I love what Justin Lin has done with the series.
Yeah.
I think ever since he took over with Tokyo Drift, he's been doing great with the series, because I think he's the only one who acknowledges that this is silly, they're rogue pirates, and the only way you can root for them is if you actually make a pirate fantasy out of it.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more of the heist story than the other ones, and they're really not Mission Impossible material, but but they try and work that angle in, and but it's just you're on for the ride, and it's a lot of fun. I'm for sure I'm going to watch the next installment of this.
That cliffhanger?
Sure, yeah.
And then we hit the beginning of May where Thor came out.
All right, so I guess this is the beginning of the superhero movies, and certainly something that overshadowed the summer.
Yes, I think it's one of 2,900 superhero movies that came this summer.
Well, Marvel is coming out swinging big time. Natalie Portman, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
She's a pixie.
And that's sort of what she played. I think there's some subtle touches. You can tell that she's still a good actress. Where, like, you can tell what she could convey with the character, even though the screenplay doesn't give her the chance. Is that she plays this total nerd that sees this big hunky guy that's super gallant to her, and she instantly falls in love with him because that's the first guy who's ever treated her that way in her entire life. And that comes across. I think she does pretty well with a very thankless role.
Most of the roles in this one I found really thankless, and I'm surprised there's still a level of charm to it, and I think it was all just on the strength of the lead, whose name escapes me. Like, I think
Chris Hemsworth.
I thought he was really well cast, and so far Marvel does seem to be taking care with the casting that they've chosen, and it does, if anything, make me kind of get more and more excited about the Avengers when it comes out, but the rest of the film just felt sterile. Like, big scenes of cities where it's just like there's only 5 people, it seemed, like walking through it. Like every planet they go to just looked like a sound stage. Like, I don't know, I didn't get a sense of scale or size or scope that I would have wanted from something like Thor. But there are little parts of it, that I liked, and certainly the main character really held it together. So
yeah, this is the last time we record on a basketball court.
Yes.
I think it was a terrible idea. Mea culpa. I agree with you, though, that it is a little bit quaint for a summer movie.
Yeah.
It is charming, though. And so I think if that movie had come out any other time of the year, I would have thought, like, oh, that was lovely, I kind of like this. But coming out in the summer, you're sort of like, that was lovely, I kind of like this. I want something to blow up now.
Exactly. And, I don't know if it's a case of, just in terms of the storytelling, they just want to keep Thor outside of New York, I guess, or whatever, that he'll be unleashed on the Marvel Universe, maybe in Avengers, but it's just, there does seem to be, like, everything's very small town, the scale of everything is very small town, and to be honest, the thing that really worried me about this movie, and I've talked about it with Eric before, was the handling of, the Warriors 3?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just these ridiculous guys walking around in costumes all the time for no apparent reason, like, it's just like, and it made me really get worried about something like the Avengers. I'm like, is this how they're going to handle a cast of more than 3? Because they just don't seem to be able to fill the screen properly with when you've got this one lightning rod of a character and surrounded by just these other characters who are just really bland. Kenneth Branagh just can't direct a summer blockbuster.
Yeah, and it's his first time, so it's certainly not a knock on his talent. It's his first time, and I don't think he did a particularly good job, but that happens.
Yeah.
But talking about bland, like the special effects, especially when you're seeing Thor, you're expecting like lightning, you're expecting like really big, and it was me.
Yeah.
Kind of, very disappointed, and I expected a lot more, and I didn't get it.
I think it was just a preview for the Avengers movie, like they did for Iron Man 2, and this is a character that's going to be in the Avengers movie that
No,
they're going to work a lot more on.
They made a full story out of it. There's certainly an arc there, but it's a very personal arc. It's a very internal character, sort of almost light comedy type thing, coming of age story for Thor, which is why it doesn't feel like a blockbuster. But I wouldn't accuse it of being like Iron Man 2 did, where the movie got us usurped a bit. I think they learned from some of the backlash with Iron Man 2.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess, to be honest, Loki was pretty well written.
Yeah.
And acted. He's so good.
I have to say, I completely bypassed him there in that little rant. But yeah, I think he played off of Thor really well.
I agree. And there's some evidence that he might come back maybe for the Avengers movie or something like that. And I was really excited because he was my favorite character in the movie. I really liked him. And Kat Dennings. Kat Dennings was fun.
Playing Kat Dennings.
Yeah. And she sort of pops into the scene, says her one-liner, and then just exits.
The guy that played Thor was really good. He's the one that I kind of liked, and even some of the scenes that he did were kind of silent. Like, here was the smart guy that wasn't talking or anything, and he came on the screen. I liked him.
Right. Well, of course, we can't talk about summer blockbuster without talking about The Beaver from Mel Gibson. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there's the definition of summer blockbuster.
That and the Tree of Life.
I am amazed at how Jodie Foster has gone out of her way to try to redeem Mel Gibson. It's like she's like doubling down, man. Like she's really like yelling on top of buildings that he's a great guy.
You think she lost a bet with her secret girlfriend? Because that's what I get the impression.
Maybe.
All right. Then, although a week later there was Bridesmaids,
Yeah, let's talk about Bryce.
and we can also maybe talk about The Hangover Part 2, which was like in the same month, a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, let's talk about both. One of them was original, and one of them was the exact same freaking movie as the one I saw last year.
Which one was which, Dimitri?
But I actually like Bridesmaid quite a bit. It's a raunchy comedy with women, but what's kind of cool about it is that they're written as women. They're not written as raunchy guys with boobs, which is usually what happens. But they're women. She is a neurotic adolescent girl. You know, she's a girl who needs to grow up, not a guy who needs to become a woman.
Mhm.
You know.
And she's slowly kind of going kind of crazy a little
Yeah.
bit. You know, just like life is not where she wants it to be. She's trying to hold on, and things are just moving away, and she's trying to hold on to a friendship that's shifting and drifting. And it was really, really well written.
Yeah.
One of the only speaking parts for men is John Hamm, who I thought was awesome. It was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. I found myself thinking about it quite a bit on the story level, like afterwards. And I just went around. I was just trying to convince people to go watch it, which is so rare. You know, when you're talking about summer blockbuster movies, you just assume people are going to go watch it. But I wanted to make sure that people saw this one. Parts of it have the weaker part of just any type of sketch comedy, where it's just you're like, okay, you're letting this scene run a little bit long. I'm waiting for the deleted scenes on the DVD. For example, like the scene in the airplane, and she just keeps trying to get up to first class, and it's just but. I still found myself thinking about it afterwards and chuckling. It was really well done. And by then, you're kind of engaged with her as a character. And I, speaking of, what Hangover 1 had was the way it told its story.
Right.
And that became the character in itself. When they tried to reproduce that for number 2, who cares? So they're just going to up the ante with the jokes, try and make it a little bit more gross.
Well, most of the time the sequel is just they change the locale. So they just put them somewhere else and they do the exact same thing.
Under Siege.
How dare you?
Shit to a tray. Yes.
Alright, well then still in May, the first really big one, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides.
The thing, perhaps more than any other movie, I find that the Pirate of the Caribbean franchise, I mean, you watch a trailer and you pretty much have everything you need. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it's convoluted stories. I'm not a crazy fan of the franchise, so I sort of gave it a miss, but I don't know. The trailer pretty much sums it up for me. I don't think I'm going to see anything in the theater that I haven't seen in the trailer.
If I were to watch it, it's because I'm craving a Johnny Depp fix.
Oh.
And I just want to watch him act kooky in a non-Tim Burton environment.
Good point.
But you might be getting too much of it, is the thing.
Yeah.
That's the big mistake that Rob Marshall did with the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie. He made Johnny Depp the point of view character, and you realize that this guy is great at coming from left field, shuffling the deck for everybody, screwing over everybody, and then leaving relatively unscathed while everybody has to run around to fix his mess. That's what makes him charming. And then you have him as a point of view character, and you get to see what he's thinking throughout the entire movie, and you realize, well, he never knows what he wants, so he's really boring as a protagonist.
Pirates of the Caribbean 4 was, if I'm not mistaken, the first time the 3D made less money than the 2D. Do we care at this point?
Well, I think,
or do we just feel vindicated? I don't know.
I think it's proof of what we've been saying on the podcast for the better part of a year now. 3D's a fad. I think they rushed it out before it was ready. I think Cameron was a little bit too enthusiastic.
Well, I don't know if it was Cameron necessarily, but everyone who did the bad retro,
But even the ones that weren't retro, they're pretty bad. Yeah. Speaking of 3D, though, I think the only movie that I thought this summer was worth seeing in 3D, and I'm like, we're totally messing with your schedule there, Nick, is Kung Fu Panda 2.
Which is the next movie I was going to talk about. So it's perfect.
Oh, there you go. And the thing about it is that there's all the flashbacks are 2D animation with the 3D technology applied to it. And those are the most gorgeous parts of the movie, the most fascinating, just visually and storytelling-wise. And I think, there's something to be said about using 3D in a way that isn't just to represent reality, and to use it as something to actually create something eerie and different.
I haven't seen this one, but I was actually really excited to go see it. I've got a lot of affection for the first one. It surprised me, and I felt like I can only speak about the first one, but some of the action scenes in that were just more cinematic than some of the action scenes you'll see in anything. But yeah, I haven't seen it, so I'm gonna have to correct that.
It is not as good as the first one. It suffers a little bit from sequelitis, where it tries too hard to top the first one and be frenetic and energetic. That the character development is present, but it's in the midst of so much action that you just start to get a little bit tired of it by the end.
The story arc itself, though, and I'm just jumping from just a couple reviews I've read, so maybe I'm wrong, but the first one is becoming that hero, and then this one is more living as a hero, or the fallout of being a hero. And if that's true, I like that idea as a template for storytelling. I don't know if that's true, though.
That's. I mean, I can see there are elements of that, definitely, but it's more coming to terms with who you are is sort of the big lesson in the movie, where all these things happen to him, and he's in a different position in his life, but he's never taken the time to build an identity other than that ambition he's had, and in this movie he's sort of forced to look back on, well, okay, I've accomplished what I wanted to be, but what is the fundamentals of who I am beyond that, which is an interesting thing. And that's interesting. It's communicated in between too much action scenes where you lose it. The idea in there is good. It's just, I think there was too much pressure to be fun for kids. I think might have been the issue.
Okay.
I guess now we fall in June. The month starts with X-Men First Class.
Marvel's on the rise, man.
Although
Seriously.
technically that franchise is still owned by Fox in the movies.
Yeah, and it was kind of rushed out from what I understand. Like, I think they almost wrote it and filmed it within 6 months, it seemed.
And you can tell.
And parts of it you can, but the thing is, I liked it. I thought it was good. I hope they don't try and do that with too many movies, because I think they actually had a really good director and the characters were good. So maybe they were able to kind of rush it out, but I don't want to see rushed movies as a rule, just because they point to this and say, hey, we saved a lot of money. But no, it was good. I've watched it twice now, because I was curious to see if it held up. And I like that they go back to the roots of just mutant as outcast. The racial overtones were very, very heavy-handed.
Yeah, although
mutant and proud.
Is it more heavy-handed than the gay analogies in X-Men 1 and 2?
Yeah.
And 3?
Yeah.
Think of it?
That's true.
I find there's too much plot in that movie. I mean, I think they were justified in not having too much trust in it and trying to cram all of the links to X-Men 1 to make it a full prequel in itself. And I mean, the box office certainly proved that the producers were right to be concerned, but just creatively speaking, I wish they had been a little bit more patient and just not fill in every blank and let some hole in so that there would be more space to breathe in that story, because it feels awfully packed to me.
I don't know. I didn't come away with that. If anything, I would say it felt like there was too much January Jones.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you should point that out. I haven't seen it, but I think part of what factored into my decision to a certain extent was that casting decision. I don't know why, but I can't stand that actress. I have a hard time. Now, I've heard some good buzz from the movie, so I've reassessed my opinion. I'll definitely check it out. But man, I don't know. January Jones, that casting was.
No, but she is beautiful.
I think she's almost well cast as the White Queen, but I just don't like her as an actress. Like, I'm trying,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I can see why they wanted to go there, and like maybe it makes sense. But
Well,
Emma Frost, sorry,
being someone who doesn't watch Mad Men and who did not know January Jones at all, I came out of the movie not really, because I saw it with this press screening, so it was before all the backlash on the web was about January Jones. And when that came out on opening day, I was like, oh really? Was she bad in it? I did not notice at all that she was bad. I thought she was just there.
But I was talking about this with Dimitri, and for me, like, that movie, the prequels are always kind of like explaining the costume that they wear, you know? And for me, like, that was so overhanded, especially with the helmet for Magneto. That being said, though, I did enjoy the film. Like, I like the two leads. I like the one that plays Professor X and the other one that plays Magneto.
James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. I like him. Michael Fassbender is...
Yeah, they're both very good.
Yeah.
They're the two only actors in recent years that I've seen them just wave their hands at a special effect, and I actually felt some intensity in that, just watching Michael Fassbender just wave his hand at the camera and go like, "Urgh." I'm making special effects.
I think he's really got a future ahead of him. And I haven't seen him in too many things. Although he was in Fish Tank,
Yeah, he was really good in that.
Which is completely different spectrum.
He was also in Jonah Hex,
Oh my God, you're right. And it's weird. After watching Jonah Hex, I was still surprised that Cowboys and Aliens was not a good idea. But I felt like it was really, really good, but then they kind of overreached with a couple things. Like they go to pains to kind of establish a somewhat realistic world, and then the last scene, they've got to put him in the cape.
I don't know why everybody's so down on this.
It looks so bad.
I was like, alright, Magneto's metrosexual, rocking it, man. He's like hooking up with Mystique and I was like, we're gonna be the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants now. Alright, now take this and paint it Rococo. That's awesome, Because what I like about this movie is that it really harked back to the Silver Age aspect of the X-Men, which is fitting for a prequel, and sort of dropped that Claremont angst, which I like, but it's refreshing to see that. So seeing that sort of really Silver Age silly costume just fit into that in my mind,
Dropped the angst, but I liked the way they wrote Professor X.
Yeah.
I thought, if anything in the writing, they just, his little quirks and, his ladies' man little tricks,
I think he's
it
kind
was
of an arrogant
more-
prick.
Yeah. And,
More like the Ultimate.
Yeah, I haven't read much of the Ultimate X-Men, just a few of them.
Yeah, but every time he was like the big playboy. It's like,
Okay.
he ended up sleeping with this woman, this woman, this woman. So.
Are they intending this to be a continued franchise, or?
It's not doing very well right now, so I doubt it. I think that's the last X-Men movie we're going to see. Although Fox is sort of desperate not to give it back to Marvel, and so that means they're forced to produce a movie every 2 years to keep that franchise in their rights. So they might just go ahead just for that.
It still, to my mind, is weird how, if they do the Days of Future Past storyline, which is a classic storyline from X-Men, if you've read the comic back in the 70s and 80s, I don't know, man, that's got to be a heck of an idea for a movie. Seriously. I can totally see them making a killing with that storyline.
And they could erase X-Men 3 by doing that. It was set it where they go back in time just after X-Men 2. It's like, we have to stop the events of Brett Ratner.
I wouldn't mind seeing a big screen, 3D animation comic book movie.
Ooh, that would be neat.
And, so go do the Dark Phoenix saga, go to the moon, battle, you know what I mean? Go a little bit cosmic,
You know what? I kind of like that idea.
I just don't want aliens with my X-Men. Even in the comic books was always like, well, it's in the comic book universe, I can accept it, but it always feels like, aren't we straying from the central metaphor that is driving the story?
Yeah, well, they got powers. They can do it.
I just want to see the Starjammers.
Yeah.
All right. They have cool uniforms.
Sorry, I'm trying to wash off the geek off of me right now.
Again, in June, middle of June, Super 8 came out.
The marketing campaign of Super 8, I find, sabotaged any chance of success for the movie. Because it's actually a coming-of-age story with an alien in the background. But it's mostly a coming-of-age story. And they put so much build-up on, we're not going to show you the alien, we're not going to show you the alien, we're not going to show you the alien. Let me spoil something for you guys. The alien shows up, and it looks so generic looking, it looks like nothing, it is super uninteresting, it is the least interesting thing in an otherwise good movie. And so they built it out so much, and everybody was like, that was it?
There's an alien?
Yeah.
I find that whenever Hollywood has done that, they've met, it's really a bad idea to try to hype it like that, because bottom line is that people's imagination, as much as we, sometimes criticize, they'll always come up with something that's better than what they'll actually show you on screen. They tried it with Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh version with Robert De Niro. Oh my God, was that bad? Cloverfield was another one. Oh, we're not going to show you the alien. We're
That's
not
not
going to show you the
Frankenstein,
alien.
that's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yes.
In that brief run of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, oh my God, we can go Victorian Gothic again.
For one movie.
I like the idea, though, of just kids trying to put together a movie and, you know, the movie following this aspect. But do adults really want to watch children for that long?
I so did. I was in love with these children. Not in a creepy way.
I know. You know, like Goonies or whatever. Like, this is more of a kid's movie, but this didn't seem like a kid's movie. So is it really going to bring in adults to say, you know, because it could go both ways with acting with kids.
No, the acting is amazing.
It does have the nostalgic aspect, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the thing. You're showing children, but you're showing them in the 70s, which is your target audience grew up in the 70s type of thing. You know, so I think that's what they were sort of aiming at. If they'd said it in the modern day, then maybe that would have come in more to the forefront.
Yeah, and it is treated that way. It is, as you say, Frank, it is treated exactly in that nostalgic fashion. What I felt watching this movie and why I grew so attached to it is that there's a romance growing between two of the kids, and I remembered every beat of it. When she first approaches him, when she sort of circles and breaks down his sort of like, you know, personal space gradually and sort of a little bit clumsily, and his taking deep breath when that happens, and all of those things. I remember living that, and I completely and utterly fell in love with those kids, and they're such good actors. Abrams really brings out the best out of them.
Okay.
It really is a movie that I wish was a movie about kids filming a movie, and they had nothing supernatural in it. It would have been a super strong movie.
That's a good sell then, because now I'm trying to think, and going back to what Frank said, I'm trying to place the movie now, because if that were to happen, like, what would they be doing? Like, texting each other? And it would have been alienating, you know, for us, you know what I mean? But, you know, I could see it kind of going back to this level of, like, well, when you're getting to know someone, you're actually getting to know them face to face, you know? You know, you're not, you know, taking pictures, and you're not playing with your iPhone, and, you know.
You just sounded like a grandpa, right? With their phones and their doohickeys.
The thing is, if an alien ever lands, I can see, you know, Bigfoot or an alien landing in the 70s and it being sort of kind of a mystery. Nowadays, you'll have about 15 people whipping out the iPhones, taking pictures of it. There is no such thing as, like, we live in the age of those strange, mysterious sightings, you know, basically vanishing from our culture as urban legends, because there's no way that this stuff can actually happen now without it being documented from 15 different angles by, you know, people walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And uploaded in YouTube like 2 minutes later.
So I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, no, I definitely recommend it. With that in mind, though, it's you have to come into it thinking this is a coming of age story. Because if you come into it hoping for science fiction, those elements don't work.
And if it was more Stand By Me, it would have been better.
I think so.
Okay.
Want to talk about Bad Teacher?
I don't like comedy when it becomes too close to something like Airplane, you know, where it's just like ridiculous jokes and everything's clowny. And I do have to say that.
What was that?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on.
Airplane is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, okay.
I understand what you're saying. Like, sometimes like that type of absurdist humor might not be anybody's cup of tea. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like these movies. Like, the laughs aren't super big or boisterous, you know what I mean? But they're okay. They're, you know, silly enough. You still get a couple chuckles. You know, it doesn't go the route of like the rom-com. They stand on their own as comedies, but the jokes are kind of few and far between. So, just kind of like my life.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Wow! If I knew that's where it was headed. And that was it for the month of June.
Wow, that went fast.
So if you have any questions, comments would like to share with us, you can mail us at mail@thedreamersedge.com or post a comment at thedreamersedge.com/multimedia or write us a little podcast review on iTunes. We'd be really grateful.
And we'll see you next time.